Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us for this webinar. And thank you, all the participants. I'm Vipin Rohila, working as program lead in AEEE, looking after industrial energy efficiency, ESCO, and M&B related work. Today, we joined with our esteemed speaker, Ms. Sarika Gosain. She's leading the ESG related activities in Forbes Mazar. Uh, as you all aware, MSMEs are the backbone of Indian economy, contributing significantly to the employment and the GDP. However, to thrive, in the today's competitive landscape, MSME must adopt, environmental, social, and governance practices and comply with the regulation like business responsibilities and sustainability reporting. Uh, we have a number of threats, major threats to the survival of these organizations, including social degradation, climate change, global warming, and economic downturn that is there. So empowering Indian MSMEs through adoption of ESG practices and compliance with the BRSR is the essential for the sustainable growth. To discuss all these points, we have a speaker, Ms. CA Sarika Gosai. She is a chartered accountant and a company secretary with a diploma in IFRS from ACCA UK and a certification in BRSR from ICAI. With over 22 years of post-qualification experience, Ms. Sarika currently heads the technical function at Forvis Mazar in India, and she led the firm's ESG and sustainability practice. Her current responsibilities include technical research, advisory, and L&D initiatives and ESG projects of the firm. She has guided numerous industries and MSMEs on their ESG and sustainability journey, helping them integrate sustainable practices and achieve compliance with environmental, social, and governance standards. Her extensive experience also include working with large clients in the area of audit, accounting, and advisory. A prolific author and speaker, Ms. Sarika has co-authored two books and regularly present at national and international forums. She is actively involved in training and educational projects with ICWAI and is a member of several ESG committees established by government bodies and the key industry associations. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction you had. If I look back my journey, it has been great. But if I actually look at the track, what you can see on my screen as well, it took a lot of twists and turns, starting from sciences, then moving to finance, then secretarial, then IFRS specifically, and now back to the circular economy where I started from, which is sciences of environment, which we collectively called as ESG. And I feel myself blessed now because I have seen 2 decades of experience in all these areas, including accounting, science, and compliance, which is somehow helping me together, working with different size of companies, including small and mid-tier companies, to help them in their journeys of ESG together. So one simple transaction, maybe capitalization of any environmental project, how it has to be accounted for, what are the compliances related to it, and how it will impact the company as a whole in their ESG journey is something I am now in a position to help the client and guide. And that's where I'm really enjoying working. So ESG is not a project, it's not a service line for me, it's a passion. And therefore, I am working with a lot of clients and different industries to help them in their ESG journey, as I said. So, without wasting much more time on what I did and how can I help people, let's understand where we are. So we will be initially discussing the strategic importance of ESG integration for MSMEs in enhancing competitiveness and resilience. We will discuss what does the sustainability and ESG means at a very high level so that we can set the context, not only in respect of MSME, but others as well, because MSMEs are not and cannot work in isolation. They are a very important part and segment of our society, our business, our industries. So we have to take them together. These MSMEs are roped in our culture, in our ecosystem so deeply that we have to work together with them, and they have to work together with everybody to make our environment eco-friendly, and to take our country to the next level of development. Then we will quickly understand the basic requirements of BRSR in general, and what's there is specifically for MSMEs, because as and when BRSR comes into picture, people do believe that it is only for listed clients, because it is only for top 1,000 listed companies where MSMEs are required and provide the data with regards to BRSR. But we would like to look at the BRSR compliance from a very different perspective for MSMEs today. We will discuss that in a while. We will also discuss some of the practical solutions and resources which are and which would be available for MSMEs for effective implementation of ESG and sustainability, and more specifically looking around the BRSR compliance, which is an upcoming area, which is, I would not say a problem area, but obviously this is a very much a good platform for everybody to provide, or to rather take up the ESG initiative and then pour those ESG initiatives into Indian sustainability reporting, which is nothing but BRSR. So let's start our journey to ESG. That's my commitment, that in 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes, there will be a lot of take home, not only for you, but for me as well. I find myself still a student after working for 22 years, but that was in different domains, though that entire domains and experiences helping me to for myself also and for others also. But ESG is so vast and so evolving, and since India is so heavily regulated, there are breathless amendments and changes which we have to adapt every single day, and therefore it becomes difficult, but at the same time becomes interesting too, to read through those guidance, those regulations, implement those, and guide the clients. So that's really interesting. So first segment of ours is strategic importance of ESG integration, especially for MSME. So before we go to that topic, let's understand a few small bites, which will, and we know these facts for sure, but at times it is really important to reiterate these aspects, to come back to the basic ground of ours, which is sustainability and environmental sustainability, so to say. Our consumption of natural resources has tripled in last 40 years, and trust me, these are diluted numbers. The situation is even worse. If I go to the next point, 7 million people or even more die from air pollution every year. By 2030, if we keep cutting our trees with the same speed, we will be left with 10% of forests for our future generation. Currently, roughly 11 million tons of plastic makes its way to the ocean every year. As I mentioned at the first point, these are diluted numbers because every one of us is not responsible enough to report these data and get these collected in these statistics. Therefore, the situation is not that good. Don't you think it is a very, very right time for us to do something for our society, for our environment collectively through our own initiatives? At times we feel that, it's only me, agar main nahi karungi to kya hoga. It's everybody together who have to take individual onus and responsibility to do something positive. And that's where the journey of our sustainability starts. When I started studying sustainability and ESG few years back, I thought it should be an outcome of COVID or some recent developments, global warming, etc., etc. But the concept of sustainability emerged way back in 1987, which really says that we have to restrict our consumption to our own share, which has been given to us by the environment, and we should not eat the share of our future generation, and that's how we would be able to become sustainable in long run. Why sustainability is important? in nutshell, there is a lot of climate change as we observe, growing population, as we know, inequality because of these factors, and therefore we have resources scarcity across, and therefore sustainability becomes more important in current era and going forward in our future. What are the benefit of ESG reporting? And what does ESG reporting mean? So when I started studying or understanding ESG, I somehow understood that sustainability is the broadest concept. And to understand the sustainability, I need to divide it into three chapters or three subjects rather. So if I have to do a sustainability reporting, I have to understand it in three different buckets, which are E, S, and G, and collectively the reporting of it will be called as ESG. So anything and everything, whatever framework across the globe we use, we have to report in these three buckets. Why ESG is coming up as a biggest risk? So let's see some statistics. So top 5 global risk in terms of its impact are assessed. This is being picked up from a report, well-renowned report. So if we look at the journey 2020, 21, 22, and 23, there are apart from ESG, one more category has been mentioned here, which is geopolitical. So if we look at the way we are progressing, the risks are increasing and the gravity of these risks is even more. And if we come down to 2024, and if we look at and we bifurcate the risk into two parts, these are even serious. So every organization, so far, the focus of those organizations has always been on financial factors, IT, etc. But the shift is coming from the financial factors to the compliance factor in terms of the ESG, and which is very much required. So every company which is working on its internal controls, IT controls, their business plans and their disaster recovery plans, etc., have to and should respect these risks and have to inculcate these risks in their risk assessment, risk planning, and mitigating factors thereof. Now, why this is a very big question now. So if I ask somebody now that if I give you a balance sheet and I give you 5 or 10 minutes time, whether you would be able to invest in that company or would you like to invest in that company, and I ask them that what are the key parameters they would look at if they want to invest in the company, the answer will come very, very quickly, saying that we will look at the profit number, we will look at the top line, we will look at the EBITDA, we will look profit after tax, we will look at the going concern, we will look at the contingency, we will look at the leverage, we will look at the management or the TCWG for that matter. But if I give you a sustainability report of any Indian company or a global company, even for BRSR, even for those companies where they have their sustainability reporting being done for last 10 years, 12 years or so, if I ask you and I give you the similar time that would you be able to provide me an assessment if company A is more viable to be invested in or a company B, then we would definitely take more time, more energy to make that analysis. And trust me, most of the financial people like me, if they don't have the understanding of the sustainability aspect, they would not be in a position to make that assessment. Going forward, apart from the financial data, non-financial data, which relates to ESG, will take the front seat to make an assessment for the viability of the company, to become a business partner for that company, or to have any connect with the company as a primary tool for the financial information. So going forward, non-financial data will become, or rather has started becoming, a tool for assessment of the performance, not only by the company shareholder, but all sort of stakeholders ranging from employees, government, bankers, business partners, value chain partners, upstream, downstream, etc. Why? Because it helps us to evaluate the ESG maturity of the organization. It does help to understand the organization's resilience towards ESG risk, including climate-related risk. It also helps to understand how outcome-oriented the company is with respect to the ESG objectives what the companies as an organization has. To understand what are the key focus areas of investment in ESG ambitions of that group or a company, to evaluate the organizational progress with respect to ESG performance, and to benchmark that organization with respect to its peers and global goals whatsoever. So as I mentioned, I just reiterate the same fact. Apart from the financial data, statistics parameters, non-financial data, which is ESG, for any size of the company, be it listed, unlisted, public, private, including MSMEs going forward, the tool for assessment of the future viability of the company will be assessed through the ESG parameters rather than anything else. Now, as we know, it's a very simple thing and everybody knows. So just to set the context, I just kept the current MSME definition. We understand that MSMEs are classified based on their investments in plant and machinery or equipment, if that is a manufacturing enterprise, or turnover if they are the service enterprise. Following is the recent criteria as defined by the central government, and that defines the companies into three buckets: micro, small, and medium, as all of us know. Just a quick recap. If it is a micro enterprise, the investment up to 1 CR or the turnover up to 5 CR will make it a micro enterprise. If I go to the next level, small enterprises are defined to have an investment up to 10 CR and turnover up to 50 CR. And the last category what we have is medium enterprise, where the investments are up to 50 CR and turnover are up to 250 CR. So this is how my MSM, micro, small, and medium enterprises, are segregated. For companies, what is the process to identify? So as far as I know, based on my experience as an auditor of the financial companies, every year there is a confirmation revised based on the revised categories or definitions of MSME. The companies send a letter to the respective stakeholders or vendors, whether you are MS or medium enterprise, or based on that, they revise their categorization, because around the MSME categorization, a lot of compliance is related to the company's own records. If I talk about financial statements, they have to record if there is a default from the company side and there is an interest due beyond a period. And why it is so? Because government is cognizant of the fact that this sector should not suffer because of the cash flow problem or any other problem, or the capacity or capability of the company to pay them off. Therefore, there is a mandatory disclosure in the financial statements if the company fails to pay them in their, in the normal course of business. So we can understand that how important this segment, MS, micro, small, and medium group is, because any payment delay is to be disclosed in the financial statements of the company. So taking inference from there, MSMEs are equally important as far as the sustainability reporting or ESG reporting is concerned. Now, there's a quick industry practice, data what we have collated. So based on the publicly available information, we have collated that how significant or how what is the importance of MSME sectors or small producers for the companies. So if we look at the companies which are largely listed or public limited companies, what is the percentage of material? And this material, what we have picked up, is based on the value of the inputs bought from them, is sourced from the MSMEs. So if I look at the first company, almost 30% on an average basis they are buying. There are a very few players who are ranging between 3 to 4 or 5%. But largely, if you see, 30, 19, 15, 15%. That's a big amount what is being bought by the companies, even the large size and listed companies, from a very important segment, which is micro, small, and medium sector. And therefore, even for ESG and any compliances related to it, this group is very, very important and is placed at a key center point. So looking at the data, what is the significance of MSME in the economy? So in terms of percentage, if I talk about, India has approximately 6.3 CR of MSMEs. It contributes, this group, 40% of India's export, and it also contributes approximately 30% of India's GDP. In terms of employment, 40% is the quantum, and trust me, this is a big number. MSME employs 40% of India's workforce across level. They are the support function for large industries. If I talk about any company which is into milk distribution packaging, so small small milkmen is the one who are the prime material providers to them. Without them they cannot function. So they are the support function for large industries, and they play a pivotal role. As I mentioned, they are at the center of the industries for inclusive development. So they are developing, they are helping the industries to develop and grow further. Therefore, MSME play a very, very important role in our economy. Now, coming to our second segment, which is the importance of MSME with respect to BRSR, and what are the implications related to BRSR for and with respect to MSME. In last 2 years, we did prepare a lot of BRSR for different companies, largely listed companies, to be very honest, some of the unlisted companies and some of the service industries also. So looking at their value chain, their supply chain, we are cognizant of the fact that some of the very crucial information does come from those MSME sectors, even if they are upstream value chain partners or downstream value chain partner. Though there are a lot of, I would not call it as a problem, but yes, practical difficulties we came across where we found it difficult to collect data. And prior to collection of data, it was very, very difficult, though imperative, to guide them, to educate them what we actually intend to get from them, to be reported in the listed companies BRSR, and how it will be verified, vetted. Because going forward, as we know, and the current financial year 23-24 is going on, which is the first time BRSR assurance which is going on. We are doing a couple of assurance for certain listed companies, and we know for sure that the data related to MSME which has been given to the listed company was subject to audit, and where the problems lie and what are the remedial action for both MSMEs and the listed client. So let's understand very quickly about BRSR, its nitty-gritties, and then coming back to MSME, how to link between the two. So as we know, top 1,000 listed companies from financial year 21-22, which was a voluntary year, were required to prepare BRSR. As against its predecessor, which was BRR, wherein S was missing, KPIs were only reported in a positive manner. However, the beauty of BRSR is that not only the positive aspect, but only the risk, and also the risk and implications are to be given in BRSR together with the mitigating factors. It is a dynamic form, as all of us know. 22-23, the form has been revised thereafter, and 23-24, we have seen sea change in multiple indicators, be it leadership or voluntary indicators. And largely, one very specific concept having 9 KPIs has been introduced, which we will discuss in a while. It has further introduced a concept of BRSR core, I was just talking about, ESG rating and ESG investing. This amendment happened last year in July, which brought a lot of concepts around ESG, BRSR, BRSR core. SEBI also introduced very specific guidance as to how to assure these data, which was a landmark in the history of the sustainability report. We will discuss that quickly. As I mentioned in the beginning slide, that apart from the financial numbers, this BRSR is going to become the report card of any company for anything, be it ESG rating, be it business expansion, be it funding, be it continuity with its existing customers, be it inviting new funding agencies, attracting employees, etc., etc. You name it, and we will have the answer in the BRSR. How and why we are understanding BRSR? Because as I mentioned, and I keep mentioning, that BRSR reporting does include the data of its value chain partners, upstream and downstream as well, which ropes in MSMEs too, and how to make a meaningful report. We will also understand that in a while. Now, very quickly, I'm sure most of you who are the part of this audience would know how my BRSR is prepared. How does it look like? What are the regulations into BRSR? So BRSR is primarily divided into three parts. Section A has very specific regulatory information about company, its holding subsidiary companies, its operations, its plans, its customers, or its products, export, CSR, etc. B is nothing, but it does talk about the company's policy making decisions, whether board of directors partake in the policy making, which kind of policies companies have, what is the frequency of approval, etc., etc. And C is the lengthiest part of BRSR. It is based on 9 principles, which are very, very specific to India, established by Ministry of Corporate Affairs some time back. After this slide, we will understand that. It's the very detailed section. It has 2 types of indicators. One is essential, which is compulsory in nature. The other one is leadership indicator, which is voluntary in nature. Again, the beauty of BRSR is, if you do not want to give any of the leadership indicator, you can skip it. SEBI doesn't want any explanation attached to it why you do not want to give it. You can just leave it blank. But word of caution, do not delete that question, because I've seen a couple of companies who delete the question itself. So do not modify the form, just leave it blank. So this is the entire section of sections of BRSR. Essential indicators are essential, as the name suggests. Recently, NSC had issued one notification based on their verification of 23-24 published BRSR, where they highlighted some of the areas of improvement with respect to BRSR, how companies reported something and how it went wrong. So it's a very good compilation. It also has a link to industry specific BRSR related requirements. It's a must read. I would suggest you go and read that. Specifically for MSMEs, because as compared to the large companies, if MSMEs either they choose to or they're required to provide the data for BRSR, it's a very good compilation industry-wide, what is being linked in that NSC circular to guide them to prepare BRSR in a meaningful manner. Now, as I just mentioned, unlike any other framework like GRI, an integrated report, or TCFD or CDP, etc., this BRSR has its own Indian principle, which are issued by Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Though this BRSR is a baby of SEBI, it has been regulated by SEBI. So these NGRBCs were initially issued by MCA, because the first draft of BRSR was issued by Ministry of Corporate Affairs only, but it was taken over by SEBI later. Therefore, those NGRBCs do exist. So there should not be any confusion that since the BRSR has been issued or regulated by SEBI, so NGRBC's National Guidelines for Responsible Business Conduct are issued by SEBI. No, these are issued by MCA, and these were never changed so far. So these are 9, and these are bucketized in E, S, and G. How these are placed, let's understand that. Let's spend some time here. So in environmental part, we have 2 principles. In social part, we have 3 principles. And in governance part, we have 4 principles. So as I mentioned, any sustainability framework you can think of or we have prepared so far will be related to and will be bucketized in ESG. No other way to do it. So for BRSR as well, my entire reporting in the entire BRSR revolves around ESG only, but alongside with NGRBCs, which are specific to Indian sustainability reporting, right? So what are these 2 environmental principles? What are these 3? Let's have a look to it. So we have 2 principles, principle 2, principle number 6. Business should provide goods and services which are sustainable and safe. It should respect and make efforts to protect and restore the environment. If I talk about social, there are 3 principles as I just mentioned. It revolves around the well-being of the company, promote human rights and inclusive growth. You must be wondering that why environment is not starting with principle 1, principle 2, principle 3. Because the chronology of principles which are being issued by MCA is in a very different manner. But these are bucketized in ESG, and therefore while we collate it, it has a different numbering. And as if we have sustainable development goals 17 in numbers, the sequence and the numbering cannot be changed. Similarly, the principles of NGRBCs, the sequencing thereof cannot be changed, and therefore they are not in the sequence. If I talk about the third pillar, which is governance, it has 4 principles which talk about integrity, ethics, transparency, and accountability. It talk about interest and responsiveness to all of its shareholders or stakeholders rather. It talks about public and regulatory policy to be responsible and transparent. It also talks about value creation for customers. So that talks about governance. So if you think of a business which is either into manufacturing of any sort of operation, you think of any size of MSME, you think of any service industry, be it MSME, non-SME, anything and everything as an operation, as a filing, anything which revolves around human capital will be covered either in E, S, or G, will be covered in these 9 principles only. You think of tax filing, you think of labor law compliances, you think of environmental clearances, you think of HR related policy, that will form part either of S part of ESG or governance part of it. S part has always been construed to be the CSR, which is not factually correct for BRSR. S part includes the internal S and external S. Internal S means internal human capital of the company. External S means the community, the CSR initiatives, and the people in the vicinity of the company. So you talk about operation, we talk about people, any human capital, internal, external, any sort of filing compliances, everything will be covered in these 3 buckets, these 3 pillars, in these 3 triple bottom approach concept, and these 9 principles. Every policy, every procedure, every aspect of the company should be embedded and be mapped to these 9 principles. So if I say that any policy of the company, what the companies historically had, has to be mapped to either of these 9 principles. So after that mapping, we do it for our clients that we put 9 principles and we put all the policies which are applicable to the company, and we find some residuary policies or we find some shortfall of the policies within any of these principles. So if I say that any of the policy, I'm not talking about SOPs or working policy, I'm talking about the technical uh, policies of the companies related to different aspects. Any policy of the company has either has to be mapped to the principle any of these, or is of no use, or your mapping is incorrect. So going forward, every policy, every aspect of the company within the organization should be embedded in these 9 principles. I have seen certain uh, vendors where they are asking the client that give us the policies in your organization within principle 7, within principle 4. So equipping ourselves with these principles, how these are embedded in our business operations, our governance part, or our S part, is very, very important. Every individual function, be it finance, be it HR, be it quality, be it operation, be it marketing, any function has to be equipped, has to be trained in this principle. Going forward, we cannot foresee any ESG reporting without the support of any other function. So the finance function will be equally important for the ESG reporting, because a lot of data in BRSR flows from finance. Similarly, HR is a very, very key function for BRSR. Similarly, for MSMEs also, if I put them, though they may be slightly smaller in size, but the entire structure of the BRSR will remain same to them. Government is working very positively for MSMEs to have industry specific BRSR, which we might see in future. Deliberations are on, because the current BRSR might not be fully applicable to them, or there may be certain questions which may not be applicable to them. Therefore, the government is very quickly, very positively working for all the industries, hearing them out. Now, as I mentioned in last August, no, not last July, apart from bringing other changes to the BRSR, which was applicable for last year, a very significant change came in the form of stating 9 key KPIs. Now, here, word of caution, people get confused. 9 NGRBC principles and 9 BRSR code. So थोड़ी देर में people get confused, or core is synonymous to 9 NGRBCs, which is not the fact. And I give one line to them to understand. Entire BRSR of mine is to be prepared using 9 principles of NGRBC, even if it's core or non-core. पूरा आपका form जो BRSR है, that has to be prepared using 9 principles what we have just seen. However, once that BRSR is prepared, 9 KPIs what we are going to understand now are the cream of BRSR, and will become substratum for so many things: peers benchmarking, ESG rating, funding parameters, value chain assessment, etc., etc. So these 9 KPIs are water footprint, water waste management, energy footprint. GHG means carbon footprint. Enabling inclusive development, if I'm growing, my people in vicinity should grow. Gender diversity, employee well-being, openness of business. This is a new concept which has been introduced in the BRSR this year, where we have to provide the data with respect to trading house, purchases made from them, etc., etc. Very, very different. I would not call it as difficult unless you understand the formula, unless you understand how to define trading house. If that is defined, people understand the concept. It is a different type of disclosure which has been added. And last but not the least, fair engagement with suppliers and customers. BRSR does require to give you information regarding suppliers and customers, कि आपने इंडिया में से कितने छोटे suppliers से MSME से आपने purchases किया है, etc., etc. And that's where MSMEs come into picture, because this is one of the BRSR core element, and therefore will be the highlight. As I showed you a couple of slides before, the compilation that big sized companies are purchasing, procuring a mass from the MSMEs, and therefore MSMEs become very, very important segment part of BRSR reporting. for the listed companies and for themselves. Why for themselves, we will understand. Now understand VCP. When I started studying VCP, I only knew supply chain. So that was a new concept, value chain partner, which has been introduced under BRSR. So value chain is nothing but the supply chain. How BRSR defines value chain is any direct or indirect business relationship, either upside of the company or downside of the company. That means any company, including MSME, where the company is purchasing the goods from or taking the services from or selling the goods to or providing the services to are the value chain partners. Upar wale upstream, niche wale downstream. These may range from suppliers and customers, manufacturers, logistic and transport partners, trade exporters, technology providers, you name it and you have. You just think of the ecosystem of the entire company upstream and downstream, and we will get the list of all value chain partners, which are largely to some extent are MSME. So why it is important in the BRSR to have the data for MSME. So the listed companies who are making the BRSR reports have to give with respect to their value chain partners, which we just discussed, all of them. And SEBI has clarified up to 75% data of the MSMEs or the value chain partners is required to be embedded in the BRSR. So questions like depositing statutory dues, environmental related compliances for MSMEs, and compliances related to laws related to health and safety, compliances related to audits, working conditions, corrective actions taken, compliance with other laws and regulations, and formal system of complaints. These are some of the examples where listed companies are required to collect data from MSMEs or other value chain partners in the system, upstream and downstream both, to be embedded in their own sustainability report, which is BRSR. And therefore, MSMEs become very, very important for the listed companies. And why they will become important for themselves as far as the BRSR reporting is concerned, we'll just discuss. So till last year, so as I mentioned, 21-22 was the voluntary first year for BRSR. 22-23 was the first BRSR compliant year. 23-24 was the second year. So while the second year came, SEBI also mandated top 150 companies to get their BRSR audited by an assurance provider. However, SEBI did not provide or mandate who can be or who should be the assurance provider. So the board is free to select any energy consultant, lawyer firm, etc., etc. Unlike a financial audit where chartered accountants are only required to audit, there is no bar or debar on any of the professionals who is equipped and capable of doing that assurance activity can do that. So 23-24 is the first year for assurance of BRSR core. And mind it, entire BRSR is not mandated to be assured. Only the 9 KPIs, what we just understood, are required to be assured for top 150 company out of 1,000 companies. It has been implemented in graded manner. 24-25 will be the second year, next 250 companies, then next 500 companies, and by 26-27, all the top 1,000 listed companies will be covered in the assurance net. Now the question arises, what listed companies, when it is to be seen? So till last year, the entities were to be looked at by March. Now recent SEBI circular says December is the time when, based on capitalization, the listed criteria based on capitalization has to be seen, and any company which is either covered in the NSE list or BSE list will be covered. Now the real game starts from here. If you look at the right side of my slide, the value chain partners gradually from 24-25 and 25-26 will also get covered in the assurance part. So please do not mistake this presentation. Assurance will not happen to them directly. This will happen to the listed company, but the data related to the value chain provided by them and reported in the BRSR. So, as a BRSR disclosure, whatever listed company is disclosing in their own BRSR will be subject to 20 audit from 24, 25, 25, 26. But the breather is from 24, 25, only top 150 companies will be covered, and that too comply or explain basis, as if we used to have for CSR some time back under section 135 of the Companies Act. From 25, 26, it is also on a comply and explain basis, but the audit will be compulsory, which is not there for 25, 24, 25. I missed to tell you one thing. The BRSR assurance will be subject to reasonable assurance. And there is a difference between reasonable assurance, absolute assurance, and limited assurance. To put it simple for you, because you all of you may not be from the financial or audit background, absolute assurance means true and correct, सब कुछ ठीक है, 100% ठीक है, which is not possible at all unless it's a certification exercise. For example, net worth certification, right? So absolute assurance is not possible. Second level comes reasonable assurance. Reasonable assurance is has the lesser gravity as compared to the absolute assurance, but it has more gravity as compared to the limited assurance, which is the most dilutive part of assurance. So BRSR core is subject to reasonable assurance, not absolute, not limited. That means there is a fair assurance exercise which has to be carried out based on the audit methodology practiced throughout the globe. There are a couple of assurance standards applicable globally. So far, till last year, there was no assurance standard, but the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India last year has issued an Indian replica of SSAE replica of SSAE named as, I'm so sorry again, the international standard is called as ISAE. The replica of it is SSAE India Mein, which has been issued by the ICAI, but SEBI hasn't mandated which one needs to be used. Either of the standard can be used. So this was all about reasonable assurance. Now moving further, very, very important aspect for MSME. Why, as I said, with respect to listed client, we understood why MSME was important. Now for themselves, why BRSR is important. See, understand one point. Unless something is mandated on us, we will not be very much disciplined about it. जब तक एग्जाम नहीं आते हम लोग नहीं पढ़ते, और on the day of exam we study for 8 hours, 20 hours. We read everything what we had studied in the entire year as a curriculum, because that is a mandate. I have an exam next day. Similarly, for MSME, there are mandates from two sides. One is a pressure from the listed client to provide the right data, because that data will be subject to audit in a phased manner. The second is gradually MSME will also be covered in the sustainability reporting mandate going forward as we move along. So early is the better. So as they start their journey for reporting for the listed clients, there will be beneficial for them, because when it comes to them as an independent reporting, they will be ready for the independent reporting. So why it is important? So the minimum compliances they are already doing to avoid. It will also help them integrating their sustainability into business strategy, because even if it's as a mandate, but they will be compelled to bring positive changes in their systems to embed the sustainability practice in the business operations. They will be aligning to the global standards if they start preparing for BRSR, because BRSR, though it is based on NGRBCs, but those NGRBCs can be mapped to sustainable development goals. BRSR can also be mapped to GRI. So any one framework can be easily mapped or mappable to other frameworks, and therefore, by preparing BRSR, they are also complying with the international standards indirectly. Operational efficiencies and cost saving is a byproduct, because once you start practicing ESG, once you start reporting ESG in terms of BRSR or any framework, it is inevitable that positive changes in terms of cost efficiency will be brought to the table, and they will be ahead of other MSMEs who are not reporting, because they will be well off. So when they will be subject to those regulatory requirements, they are already practicing those as voluntary measures. Therefore, it is very, very important for them to practice BRSR compliances. Now, it's very easy to say, आपको BRSR बनाना चाहिए, आपको you have to provide this information, bring these changes, etc., etc. But we cannot ignore the challenges which will come, obviously come in the first phase or the second phase or the third phase. But gradually, these will be overcome as a group, individually, or through support of the industry, or through support from the government. Government is very positively working to handhold, to support MSMEs in different facets of ESG. Therefore, these challenges, I am sure, will come. These are unavoidable, but will be faced, will be mitigated, provided they are very, very positive in the ESG integration process. So obviously, so far, any MSME who starts the journey of ESG, there will be limited awareness about what are the ESG risks and what are the ESG opportunities. Will be obviously have the limited low cost finance available to them. Their focus so far might be limited to short-term profit than long-term value creation. Maybe initially they might have, or maybe facing the lack of standardization of technologies in their group. Unorganized value chain. So the MSME obviously in the entire chain will have their own value chain partners, which are even smaller. So bringing them together for their own reporting will again be a challenging thing, but yes, it can be countered. Inadequate focus initially might be on EHS, then limited community engagement initiatives so far they might be facing. Skill gaps which are actually required for ESG, which are actually in practice, which will be filled over the period. Waste and water management may be a problem initially to them. Lack of awareness of government schemes and policies which might support them in their sustainability journey. But obviously, with the help of the entire group together, they might overcome it through collaboration. Limited infrastructure for further expansion, and limited corporate governance structure they might have so far. So these are very, very initial challenges which every MSME has to face unless they are already on their way to ESG. Now, I always believe that, I always tell my team, if you are bringing a problem, bring the solutions, bring the alternatives also. So if I have stated these challenges, I have some bit of advice as well, how to practically resolve those. And I cannot say that in 1 hour session I will be, or anybody can resolve all the problems. But what we are doing today is we are sowing the seeds, right? So these have to become plants and trees in future. This is the first step. This is the baby step. If you have not started your journey as yet, the awareness is the first step to take the positive decision. So what are the practical solutions and resources available to MSMEs for effective ESG? This is a last segment, but most important for our today's discussion. So let's invest a lot of energy on this. So first of all, knowingly or unknowingly, most of the companies and most of the industries are already doing a lot in terms of E, S, or G, either E or S or G, or all of them together. And as I started with saying, knowingly or unknowingly, if we start mapping those to E, S, or G, we will realize that 60-70% they are already there. How? Let's see. So if I talk about E, they are already either under a mandate or through a voluntary measure, doing some bit of it in their own operations, maybe noise pollution, air, water pollution control, e-waste management, hazardous waste management, or normal waste management, biodiversity, or energy consumption, conservation like PAT scheme. They might already be doing it as a mandate or peer pressure, or if they are a part of group which mandates the equal policy of ESG to all segments of the group, even if it's MSME, they might be doing it. Similarly, if I come to the social part, they're already complying, they might be complying labor laws, occupational SHE policies, community welfare, customer protection, data privacy, POSH. And if we come to G, they might be already doing, and I'm sure it is inevitable, GST tax, corporate governance, child labor protection, etc., etc., in their own way, maybe not documented. I would rather say that. They may be doing it, not documenting it, not uh, they are not robed in the policies per se, but they're already doing it. So once any of the company who is starting with the ESG function or taking initiative in the ESG, if they start taking the stock of what they are doing in ES or G space, they would already be doing it. Is just to put together them and systemize them and make it as a process and then see where the gap is. So the rest of the journey is very easy. So let's understand what are the easy targets or low hanging fruits for MSMEs to start. So they can start switching to energy efficient appliances like LEDs, which might not involve a lot of investment. Adhering to labor laws, I'm sure they might be doing it, but putting somebody responsible to ensure that there are zero tolerance about compliance with the labor laws and environmental laws at least. Waste management and recycling, I would not say it's a system, it's a habit. If I put myself into habit of not throwing the waste here and there, I am directly or indirectly doing my waste management for myself and for my environment at large. It's a practice, it's a habit. Biodiversity conservation and tree plantation, again, it's not a schedule, it's not something a mandate. So I've seen in one of the clients that they are planting they are planting tree where they have a baby girl born in any of the employees place with some cash gifts or so. So that is a mandate plus good practice, and that will bring a positive change in the environment as well. Community engagement, small level, big level, even if, so I am attached to an organization where we spend our hours to teach. So we go and teach, we have specified hours communicated to them, we go and teach to them. So I have no investment done in that, but for them it's a cost saving. So these little steps can be taken by MSME to be ESG compliant. Digitization and technology adoption, this is a very good initiative, but word of caution, it might involve some cost also. So priority wise, they can take a step towards this also. Employee engagement and well-being might not involve a lot of cost, but a cognizance is required, a positive step is required towards it. Last but not the least on the screen is sensitizing employees on ESG principles. So this is an upcoming area where behavioral changes are to be brought, and it's been mandated by some of the companies, not only at the workplace but at their own place. Because if the person practices that particular thing from home, he will bring that to the table in the organization, and it's a chain reaction, and that will be spread across the organization. So these are some of the low hanging fruits which can be started, can be practiced by MSMEs to be ESG compliant. Now, how we can empower ESG from an external force? We can educate them, we can have the awareness sessions, access to resources should be available to them. Networking and collaboration might not involve a lot of investment for them, but good practices sharing with peers might bring a positive change for all of them together. It's a win-win situation for everybody. And involve passengers. That means financial support and incentives can be sought from the bankers and the funding agencies, giving them the project's detail, etc., etc. Similarly, technology and innovation will bring a lot of change. Policy advocacy and regulatory support, compliance assistance will also bring positive changes. As I mentioned in the previous slide also, if they are open for public partnership avenues, then it can bring positive change and economy of scale as well. Monitoring and evaluation will also bring a lot of changes to them. So these are some of the ways internally and externally where MSMEs can be empowered for their ESG journey, not only for bringing positive changes, but for the BRSR, another sustainability report as well. So sustainability, they bring the positive changes, as I mentioned on the previous screen. Now, if they do or they start doing the sustainability report, even they can start an unstructured sustainability report also. How that will make changes to their lives? Obviously, it will improve their brand image. They can have access to capital by submitting that sustainability report to the funding agencies, bankers, fund providers, or by publishing on the public portal. They will be able to better comply with the regulation or norms. They can have the access to the market, and they will bring the competitive edge by bringing that sustainability report available to all. Uh, it will lead to innovation and growth by showcasing their ESG achievements. It will definitely help them create value addition in long term. And obviously, last but not the least, which is very, very important and most important aspect, any positive change in ESG aspect, be it empowering employee, looking at their health and safety, or community development, using the technology, or bringing positive changes like waste management, water management, it has to bring positive operational changes in the organization, hence reduction of cost and hence increase of profit or increase of the scale of the operation. That is inevitable. Now, very quickly, I don't think we have much time. I think I have 10 more minutes. Let's quickly understand some of the success stories of MSME. So if we understand that if some other MSME can do it and has done it, why can't I? So these are some of the success stories. So in Kashmir, there is an MSME based out of Gujarat that promotes sustainable livelihood by collaborating with local artists and craft people, and they produce eco-friendly products like handmade paper and textile, etc. This is a success story what we gathered. Another one is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well, Boheco Life, which is Mumbai-based MSME that specializes in production in ham-based products, and it has established a very sustainable supply chain by collaborating, by partnering with local farmers and employing environmentally um, friendly process. I'm in Gurgaon. I've seen one venture called Kisan Say. So that person is IIT based retired professional, and he has collaborated with farmers, and he only provides or collaborates with some of the societies where they have available space either in the parking or in their lobby, etc. And he allows them to enter on a particular day, I think twice a week, where they put their farmed organic products. And that's a very good initiative. He is not charging anything from them. He is just connecting those farmers to the societies, and society people are also getting at their doorstep, at their access. So that's how MSMEs can benefit by collaboration, and that's been evidenced, showcased through this success story, and we can replicate the similar practice. If we look at recent news, SIDBI is a key game changer, and it has through its financing has empowered a lot of MSMEs through ecosystem green, and it has launched a lot of lending products for competitive terms, facilitating energy efficiency. If in nutshell, if we see the the collabs what SIDBI has made for MSME, it is close to 30% of country's GDP, which contributes almost 45% of India's export. That's the big help from SIDBI to MSMEs. So the first thing is awareness about ESG, then see the avenues bringing positive changes, making the entire ecosystem within the organization positive about ESG, and looking for avenues. And things are easy. Ministry is also helping a lot and trying to help MSMEs through organizing capacity building sessions, providing certain exemptions for corporate reporting. As I mentioned, they are in the process of giving some liberties in BRSR for certain MSMEs and value chain partners. Organize interaction with MSMEs and trade association for certain benefits to be provided to them, and help them with some of the benefits like loans and other loan products. So ministry is also supporting MSMEs both in terms of initiatives and reporting as well. In case MSME feel that they are stuck somewhere, they can seek additional help in terms of reporting and assurance, strategy mapping, preparation of BRSR, GRI, SESB, and others, sustainable finance, decarbonization strategy, assurance, maybe on mandatory basis or as a mandate of the group, life cycle assessment, which is a new concept, carbon accounting like GHG, and low carbon strategy and carbon neutrality as per SBTI or net zero pathways, and ESG due diligence. So I personally believe if I cannot do anything at home or at workplace, I cannot alone run the practice. I have to seek help. So if any of the MSME feels stuck, there are collaborative measures like if any of your peer is doing, just go and speak to them, have industry representations or and seek help. So that's it from my side. I think I'm well on time. And one thing I would like to mention here, that as I mentioned, I'm still a student. ESG is not a destination, it's a path. I'm going through it every day, uh, passing across new trees, new plants, new seeds, sowing them, getting the fruits. So I would attempt and I would make my full effort to answer any of your queries. But as I mentioned, things are evolving and there are a lot of things which are happening across different regulations. I will endeavor to answer those. If anything requires any further research, I will not give any incorrect or superficial answer. I will take a note of it. And otherwise, we have a couple of experts with us on the forum. We will request them to add wherever we have to have a value addition in terms of answering any questions. Yeah, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time and enlighten us on this important topic, which is need of the current market. We have few questions from the participant. I'll go one by one. Uh, First question we have from Saga and Associate. Are there any mandatory and voluntary uh, in uh, nine principles for different scale of companies?
So if they are asking about 9 principles, I'm thinking they're asking about 9 principles of NGRBC is not BRSR code, as I mentioned. So as I mentioned, those 9 principles are inevitable, an essential part of BRSR. It's a substratum for the BRSR to prepare. They have to, everybody matlab everybody has to apply NGRBCs, 9 NGRBCs to the extent applicable. If nothing is applicable, then they can write, but there is no exemption per se for any industry specific company or size of the company from the ministry. So in a way, if you look at those 9 principles, as I projected, these are very generic. The company should take care of the well-being of the company. Can we say that it is not applicable to any size of the company? The company should create value addition, or they should take care of health and safety. They should be transparent. They should be responsible. So those are very generic principles which should be applicable to every scale of companies.
Next question, ma'am, is from Mr. Muralidharan Subramanian. Has BRSR Lite supposed to be used by MSME being released for use?
BRSR Light was initially, issued by MCA. That is not, as per my understanding, that is not in practice. There is only one BRSR which is applicable to everybody, which is BRSR and BRSR Core. As I mentioned, Ministry and SEBI and other industry associations are working to have industry-specific BRSR, which is yet to come.
Ma'am, next question is from Ashim Roy. How the listed compliance companies are presently collecting data and disclosure requirement under BRSR from their MSME value chain partners. Are these
Yes.
listed companies also providing uh, training, technical and financial support to their upstream and downstream partners?
So to start with, if you look at the BRSR, there are multiple questions like compliance with respect to human rights related to value chain partners, including MSME, health and safety measures taken by them, and amount of purchases done from MSME. These are some of the questions which are to be reported with respect to MSMEs and other value chain partners. Obviously, there, as I also said, it is very, very difficult, first of all, to educate them that this is important exercise for the listed company and for them also, because gradually those value chain partners will also be covered under the audit regime. So yes, we did encounter a lot of, I would not say problem. I never call any work as a problem. I say yes, difficulty is there. So we had conducted a lot of sessions for different value chain partners depending upon the categories. For example, one session in a group was conducted only for raw material providers in the same category because they understand the same kind of regulation. The other session was conducted for service providers. The other session was conducted for the downstream customers of the same category of product. So we initially conducted, and that's how the companies conduct the sessions for awareness for value chain partners. They educate them about the importance of the BRSR, the data, and the usefulness of that data. Then they prepare a checklist which is to be filled by them, because as I mentioned, SEBI mandates 75% of the data to be provided in the BRSR for and with respect to this thing. So they have to complete that threshold. Once they receive the data, then on test check basis, it is required to be vetted. I would not call it as audit, because why would a small vendor cater me to audit their data? But whatever they are submitting as a data, it is vetted on a sample test check basis to understand if it is correct or incorrect. Once there is a comfort level on that data, that is combined, compiled, and incorporated in the BRSR report of the listed companies. But saying that, telling you the process seems easy, but it is not. Trust me.
Thank you. Next, moving to the next question from Mr. Ivank Negi. Considering the resource constraints, financial limitations, and evolving material risk associated with MSMEs enterprises, how can each category implement ESG reporting using BRSR framework without overburdening?
Yeah, if you could recall, I had shown a couple of slides where I had mentioned specifically the low hanging fruits for them. So the first step is making yourself committed that yes, I have to take positive steps towards ESG initiative and ESG reporting. That is one. If you start thinking in that line, 50% problems are doggone. Then we have to see what all we are already doing. As I mentioned, that we have to look at what practices in an unstructured manner we have already been doing. Then we have to see where we are and where we have to go and how to fill that gap. Is it something we can, take help from any of the peer companies who are doing it? Is it something we have to take help from an external consultant? Does it require cost? Does it it does not require any cost? If it requires cost, whether it's worth investing or not, or can I take it up in the next year? So we have to devise a 3 years or 2 years roadmap. Everything cannot be done in the first year, right? So the
Right.
first year might involve enabling that training programs, capacity building programs, bringing awareness within the organization and taking cognizance what we are doing and where we have to go. Maybe in the second year we can start gradually taking the positive initiative, and the third year we will be full-fledgedly available with the data.
Thank you. Moving forward, we have next question from Mr. Mrinal. How does the BRSR framework impact MSMEs related to the legal framework and the additional effort they have to put? What specific legal repercussions might company face for failing to comply with the BRSR requirements?
Yeah. So as I mentioned in one of the slides, that what are the details which with respect to MSMEs are required to be embedded in the BRSR. It requires whether the MSME has deducted tax, whether they have taken the health and safety measures for their own employees, and related compliances. So at least for legal compliances, no MSME has to take any additional effort. They must already be doing, but they have to make sure that if there is any delay or they are paying any penalties, they have to be zero compliant in governance. If you could recall, I had said that, at least in the labor law and environmental law. So per se, no additional efforts are required, but whatever is required, we have to make sure we are complying with that. And if he's asking about repercussion, obviously there will be repercussion. If I am not complying with any labor law or environmental law, the repercussion would be from that respective ministry or the regulator. In BRSR, wrong data or non-compliance, there is no penalty which has been prescribed so far. But I always say to the value chain partners, the respective penalty and the repercussion would come from the respective regulator.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving forward to the next question from Mr. Shyam Gupta. He has two questions. What is the time frame and frequency of BRSR for a company under MSME? And who does audit for ESG compliance? And there is any private companies authorized for this?
Yes. So BRSR will form part of the annual report of the company. So every company who is registered in India is required to submit their financial statement to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, right? So that BRSR will be accompanied with the annual report itself. So the timelines will match with the annual report. So the annual report ka jo time hota hai, that is 6 months from the end, and there are other permutation combinations. So there is an extension which is available from MCA. So it has to be filed with that. It has to be matched with the timelines of your own annual report. That is one. As I mentioned, SEBI has, unlike the financial statements where chartered accountants can only audit, ESG audit or BRSR audit is mandated by SEBI, but they have not mandated who can do it. Even a chartered accountant, company secretary, lawyer, engineers, law firm, can anybody do it? But obviously, they have left the discretion at the board, and board will decide who can do the effective audit, because a chartered accountant would know what to audit, how to audit, and an ESG professional would know what to audit. So there has to be a perfect mix. ESG audit, how to do it. So there are very few professionals who understand the audit plus ESG, and therefore currently there is a problem.
Correct. Ma'am, I'll take two questions continuously. First one is, are there any incentives for companies doing the reporting? And second question from Mr. Balwinder Singh, is there any certified third-party assessor for BRSR report?
Certified third party for?
Assessor for BRSR report.
SSA meaning?
Like any third party after reporting, is there any third party verification sort of, or assess whether it is correctly reported or not?
Okay, I'll just answer those questions. So I had shown the incentives also through my presentations, that there will be direct and indirect benefits for BRSR reporting. For listed companies, since it's a compliance, they have to do it, right? So there might be further incentives, but if they don't do it, there are penalties under SEBI, right? So for MSMEs, there are two types of incentive. One is they would be providing the data to the listed companies, right? If they don't provide it, I'm sure listed companies would not do business with them. And they will blacklist them because they are not providing the BRSR data, right? So indirectly, it becomes a mandate to them to have that business relationship with the listed company to do that BRSR reporting and provide the data to them. That is one. And for certifying BRSR, so certification might be in two ways. One is the helping the companies to prepare BRSR, and the another one is assurance. For assurance, I've already clarified there is no mandate. Anybody can do it. Even the BRSR assurance assistance, BRSR preparation assistance can be done by anybody. Obviously, the company should be comfortable that this person is equipped with the BRSR understanding and help the company to prepare the BRSR. But as such, there is no other certifying agency, so to say.
Okay. Moving forward to the next question from Mr. Binoy K. Chaudhary. He is asking, is AI, artificial intelligence, or machine learning tools necessary or useful in BRSR reporting, and how that data is managed for the stakeholder?
So AI or any IT tools, etc., would not be specifically required for BRSR reporting and preparation thereof, specifically for very simple reason. It's a dynamic form. It keeps on changing. And it does require a lot of legal and other interpretation. For example, the worker's definition, which is a worker, which is not comes from a Supreme Court case law. Some of the guidance come from SEBI, what is the meaning of CTC for median, what is the meaning of salary, and some of the guidance comes from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So Institute has also revised their guidance note twice so far. So AI cannot at least help in BRSR preparation because that's not a fixed thing. It requires a lot of human intervention and interpretation of the definitions and the concepts thereof. However, IT plays a very important role within the organizational structure and control processes to manage the data. For example, we have to provide the data in the BRSR for skilled, unskilled, semi-skilled, manual. So that categorization should come on the click from the system, and that can be done through the help of, I would not call it as AI, but IT support system of the organization. So per se, AI would not have any help unless I would say that if somebody wants to frame any answer, so they write some raw answer, and based on that they want to have a polished answer, they can use AI to rephrase it, paraphrase it. But again, word of caution, please make sure whatever is the outcome is making sense what you wanted to write.
Fantastic. Ma'am, one of the participant has asked if is there any standard format for writing BRSR
Yes.
reports?
SEBI has provided the entire 30-40 page report. Once it is filled in, it ranges from 60 to 90 or 100 pages. That's a very specified format. And I did mention that if you do not want to answer any question, do not delete anything. You just keep it blank. It's a very structured format. We cannot play around it.
Okay, ma'am, there is one fresher student who have asked this question. What are the job prospect for ESG
A
officer
lot
or
of.
a,
I did
in
not
current
even hear
scenario?
this. So I can be an advocate to that. You see, in my last 22 years, I was practicing accountancy and this. Now I'm enjoying this thoroughly, and I have a big team ranging from accountants and company secretaries, lawyers, IT professionals, IFRS professionals. So everybody is so roped in the entire ESG because ESG, every function of the organization does require ESG professionals. So I have a team member who is an IT professional plus ESG professional. So every professional has the equal opportunity in the ESG domain in every industry. The beauty of this is that.
Fantastic, ma'am. And next question related to the penalties. What are the penalties to MSMEs mentioned in one of the initial slides? Question from Mr. Pradeep Singh. Is there any
So
penalty?
yeah, I just come to that. So that penalty was not with respect to BRSR. That penalty was that originally whatever law compliance is required, if you are not doing that, regulator will have the penalty repercussions. That was mentioned.
Okay. And one more question regarding the roadmap process to submit BRSR report for any MSME or a specific company.
Yes. So that very MSME has to be abided by the checklist or the guiding principles by that respective listed company whom they are attached to, if they are doing the BRSR reporting for them. However, if they are making their own individual standalone sustainability report, they can do it the way they want.
Okay. There is a one, we will take last two more questions, Memo. We are just closing. So one question is from Miss Jaya, asking, ma'am, could you please guide us on to some skill sets in terms of softwares or tools that can help us ESG reporting, be it BRSR or GRI?
As I mentioned, these are both of them are very dynamic forms and requires a lot of logical interpretations, and more specifically the BRSR. So BRSR, if I break it down in terms of percentage, it is 30% Companies Act and LODR, 30% labor and HR related compliance, and rest is other part of it, right? So no software, at least in India, can cover. I am sure a lot of vendors and agencies are there who are in the process of BRSR structured format they are producing. I'm not demining their efforts, but so far what I could observe working with big clients, and I'm an assurance agency also for a couple of big listed clients as well, covered under 150 companies. So I personally feel no software can beat the human intelligence, at least for BRSR and GRI.
One more question from Mr. Sharad Kumar. Any comments on the scale of adoption as in percentage of total SME only of ESG for downstream suppliers? Any mandatory compliance now coming in any by government for small industries specifically?
So again, uh, I had shown the data in terms of the procurement done from the upstream, but publicly there is no data available that the company is selling to the small sized companies how much. That data, that research is not done, or at least not available to me. I could not find it. And what was the next part of the question?
Ma'am, it is related to the ESG for downstream supplier and any compliance now coming in by government for small industries specifically.
Yeah, so as I said, so the first step for them, the mandatory thing is to provide their data for BRSR listed client, and gradually they will also be under the net individually also. तो अभी तो दो चीजें हैं, एक तो BRSR के लिए उनको डेटा देना है, और 25-26 से ऑडिट के मैंडेट में भी आ जाएंगे, तो उनको they have to make sure, even if it's the downstream, that the data what they have provided is true and correct.
Ma'am, one question, actually
No
questions are
problem,
keep
please take it.
from Mr. Alok Singh. He's asking how one can deal with lack of data availability while having a submission deadline. Is there any control guidelines for or any guidelines for document control?
No, so there are no guidelines per se. As I said, the first step is to get ourselves equipped what is required. Second step is what we have. Third step is what is the gap. And then analyze if that gap relates to regulatory compliance. If that relates to regulatory compliance, that has to be filled in, no failure. If it relates to something which is could have practice, for example, to have gender diversity, for example, right? So having a gender diversity is a good equation in the company, but if company has a ratio of 2:98, nobody would sue them. However, if the company has a posh complaint of 5 and the company is not resolving it, obviously the regulators will come and say, "Aapne ye posh complaints kyun nahi resolve ki?" So we have to we have to categorize the data, what is zero tolerant and what is something which can be improvised in future, which is not having any regulatory repercussion.
Correct. One more question from Mr. Vasant. He is asking about like how energy service company ESCOs basically support MSMEs in doing the BRSR. Is there any existing work is going on by ESCOs, or
Yes.
in
So,
future any probability is there?
Hanji, Hanji. So as I mentioned that currently applicable BRSR is applicable to all sort of companies of any scale, any industry. However, based on the recommendations received by SEBI, I am part of one of the committees and therefore I know they are working on industry specific and scale specific, size specific companies where BRSR will be divided for different type of industries, and then they will have very specific questions related to energy companies. So for example, there is a additional requirement in the BRSR for energy intensity. So that ratio for energy company and other company, it is not comparable right now. Every company is giving, but it is not matchable. So it will have a different perspective when it is industry specific BRSR for the peers benchmarking, which is currently not available.
I guess it's we should close it now. We have a request from the participant, many participants to share the PPT. We will share the PPT to all the participants who have attended this webinar. And thank you, Sarika ma'am, for sparing time for enlightening us for this very important topic, empowering Indian MSMEs and the use of ESG practices, BRSR compliances. They are the need of the current market now and very important, being the majority of the portions, the listed companies, they are supported by the MSMEs. And it was very informative sessions, and we understand that participants are definitely get benefit from this session. And specifically, like I've seen many student was also there in the session, and they have asked for a few questions like what are the job opportunities in this domain, which I feel personally also like it's a big market and booming market, and I'm sure it will definitely help you and having more job opportunities in the the coming years. So thank you very much, ma'am, for sparing time for AEEE and giving this session, wonderful session for us and the wonderful participants. Thank you very much. Thank you, participants, for joining us for this session. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for providing me the opportunity to share. So just was one last closing comment from my side. Uh, as I mentioned, ESG is not a job, is not a service line for me, it's a passion. I really want to create a chain reaction because one person cannot bring positive changes across uh, even a city if I talk about. So we collectively have to make collective efforts. And in our own way, somebody can contribute knowledge, somebody can contribute resources, somebody can organize these sessions. So I am very, like I owe to AEEE to organize this, bringing people on one platform to allow me to share what I have. And obviously it will have some seeds which will be becoming plant in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.